This video is sponsored by Ren. Hey everybody. Hey everybody. Hey everybody. So the other day, a video popped up on my TikTok feed. Hey everybody. It had about 1 million likes, and it was a video of a lady on some podcast saying some things with a reaction stitched onto the end. I'm just gonna play it now because the sooner I do, the sooner you won't have to be watching it anymore because you will have watched it already.
Abortion's worse than slavery.
Well,
I don't care if this hurts your feelings. I don't care. Abortion is the #1 worst human rights issue that has ever happened on American soil.
So on first watch, there are a number of things I'd imagine you might be saying right now. What? Why?
Abortion's
How? Why?
worse
Why?
than
Who?
slavery.
Why?
I don't care.
Stop. And those are all valid questions and thoughts. For me, I interpreted this clip as someone just doing what the kids call a little bit of trolling.
We do a little trolling. It's called we do a little trolling.
It's long been a podcast promotion strategy to say outrageous things on your show, clip it, and then post it to TikTok and have it go viral as you get mercilessly dunked on and witness in real time a trickle-down boost of followers that actually happen to agree with whatever insane, exaggerated claim you might have been making in the original clip. It's the industry standard, and it makes for some truly fantastic and normal fan communities. I thought this might have been that, and perhaps it is, but the person in the video doesn't think so.
Abortion is worse than slavery. People thought I was just trying to be provocative, but I mean this, and I'm going to unpack what I mean by this.
It is 1,000,000 times worse than slavery. Abortion is 1,000,000 times worse than slavery ever was and ever will be.
Make no mistake though, she was getting dunked on, ratioed into oblivion in the comments. They gotta stop giving people microphones. 40,000 likes. This better affect her credit score. 70,000 likes. She said that too loud. 70,000 likes. It got to the point where her TikTok account was actually taken down. And so of course she opened up a new one to thank everyone for the views by insulting them.
And so you're just leaving people with this empty hole in their heart. They have no meaning, nothing. And then they take to Twitter, to Instagram, and they find something that feels like it's bigger than themselves.
Yes.
And then they latch onto it, and then they turn into bots.
And also post workout videos where she does some stretches, which I assume must be some kind of warm up for all of the mental gymnastics.
Did you know that Black people are not the only race to have historically experienced slavery? I know this is shocking, but pretty much every civilization in the history of mankind, at some point their ancestry owned slaves. And the United States was one of the first countries to abolish it very quickly and efficiently.
So if this person is already being dragged through the mud for this on its face horrible and racist take, then why am I making this video? Well, to be honest, the more I looked into it, into who this person is, the rhetoric they are using, and how it relates to other similar pro-life rhetoric outside of this context, the more I found this whole story just interesting. I'm interested in the contradictions found within extremist pro-life ideology. I'm interested in the divide between general TikTok audiences and far-right religious podcasters. And I want to talk about all this stuff. So that's what we're going to do today. But before we do, first, a quick word about today's video sponsor, Ren. We all emit CO2 in our lives. Sometimes you burp, sometimes you drive a car, sometimes you own one of the 100 companies that are responsible for 71% of global emissions. It happens to the best of us. But Ren wants to help. Ren is a website where you can fund a diverse mix of carbon reduction projects, like tree planting, mineral weathering, rainforest protection, and more. All you have to do is answer a few questions about your lifestyle in order to calculate your carbon footprint, and then you can offset this footprint by choosing any one of Ren's specifically curated projects to donate to. Once you sign up to make a monthly contribution, you receive monthly updates from the projects you support. You get to see what your money is spent on with photos of every tree planted, every acre reforested, and every ton of carbon offset. Now, here's where some of you may be thinking, well, Noah, isn't the carbon footprint just a deceptive marketing campaign concocted by British Petroleum in order to redirect blame for fossil fuel emissions onto individual consumers? And yes, you would be correct. It is propaganda, fossil fuel industry propaganda. At least that is the origin of the phrase. But now the carbon footprint is part of common parlance, we must work to expand the meaning of this phrase to make it absolutely clear that companies and governments must be held accountable as well. To help with this, Ren is now sending 10% of member subscriptions towards climate policy groups like Clean Air Task Force and Carbon 180. Now, with Ren, the actual projects themselves are what I find most intriguing. One of my personal favorites is the tech-enabled Amazon rainforest protection, which works with indigenous peoples in the Peruvian Amazon to provide technology like drones to better survey the land and detect deforestation early on. This project was shown to reduce deforestation by over 50% in the first year alone, and is an extremely cost-effective solution to protecting forests while promoting indigenous rights. Offset your carbon footprint on Ren. The first 100 people to sign up using the link in the description will have 10 extra trees planted in their name. Alright, thanks Ren, and now back to the video. Whoa, new shirt, what happened? Where are we? New shirt, new shoes, new service, new recording session. Sometimes you gotta split up your filming days as a treat. Okay, so you may have noticed that thus far I've gone out of my way to censor all of this person's social media information. The reason I've decided to do that is that they are still small. Like, even though she's been on Candace Owens' show and has a bunch of Instagram followers for her fitness page thing, the podcast they have is still under 20,000 subscribers. Small enough to where platforming them can really only draw the wrong sort of attention to the account. 11% of Americans believe that even in cases where pregnancy threatens the pregnant person's life or health, abortion should be totally illegal. 15% of Americans believe that even if the pregnancy is the result of rape, abortion should still be totally illegal. I'm sure you all saw the news about Roe v. Wade and, you know, Texas's bounty hunter abortion law. So basically, I don't want to get these groups of people congregating as fans of a podcast or anywhere else. But okay, so this show is just like a uniquely horrifying gem of conservative, it's almost performance art. For one thing, you have the lady, who we already saw say that crazy stuff, certifiably a right-wing religious extremist. She used to work for Candace Owens.
Oh my gosh, I love this. I worked for her for over 2 years. I was her very first hire, so I can't wait to tell her that I'm the Asian Candace Owens. She's gonna love it. Love it.
Which makes a lot of sense, actually. Given Candace's propensity to downplay the severity of American chattel slavery, she's got a whole PragerU video on it.
Here's the first thing you need to know. Slavery was not invented by white people.
Oh my God!
The word slave actually comes from the Slavs of Eastern Europe. Millions of them, all white by the way, were captured and enslaved by Muslims.
Thank you, Candy Owens. She has certain opinions on trans people.
Have you noticed that there are no trans men dominating men's sports, but there are plenty of trans women dominating women's sports? Funny how that works.
Wow, what a surprise that she would say something like that. I'm so confused. The conservative media worldview is never this predictable. And then you have the show's co-host, who I would describe as being like fuckboy Inside Out dad. Like, there's fuckboy Aladdin, right? Aladdin biting his lip with tattoos and a beanie. This guy is that, but for the dad from Inside Out. And he's an interesting presence on the show, because while he will say absolutely disgusting, heinous shit, like insinuating that rape victims shouldn't get abortions because they need the baby for DNA evidence.
I got a lot of pushback when I said something like, why are women who are getting raped getting abortions? Isn't that killing the number one piece of evidence they have against their rapist? Right?
He will also be the one to weirdly jump to the defense of people who've had abortions.
And I'll also say to the right, let's not immediately fly off the handle at women who have had abortions, because they probably, I'd say a lot of the time, they're probably in a bad way.
Or talk about how Christian Walker is just playing a character and he's not really like that, to kind of try and defend him from the co-host who just doesn't want gay shit, a part of the conservative movement.
I'm telling you, I think it's a caricature. Like, that's a Saturday Night Live caricature of a gay conservative.
Yeah.
That's what I think that is.
I can see that. And again, I don't like the gay stuff being in the movement.
But okay, so let's just go through some of the arguments that this person makes for the claim that abortion is worse than slavery. You might think that this isn't necessary because of how self-evidently ignorant that statement is, but I do think it's necessary, because abortion being compared to things like murder, slavery, and the Holocaust, aside from being a very dangerous precedent to set, is also not a new phenomenon. United States politicians and government officials have used the slavery analogy before. The Holocaust comparison specifically was a staple of the early pro-life movement. It was even employed in 1985 in court to defend a couple of young men who happened to be caught placing bombs in abortion clinics. Oops. 40 years ago, if the bombers had sabotaged concentration camps, they would be heroes. In World War II, my father commanded a rifle company that liberated Landsberg, where Hitler wrote Mein Kampf. My father saw pile upon pile, thousands of emaciated bodies. Why did they, the bombers, do it? Because our Supreme Court, in its omnipotence, says we can kill as long as we're nice about it. This is the type of rhetoric that is used to justify violence against abortion clinics, abortion rights activists, and people who have gotten abortions. And as much as I really want to just laugh at how insane this take is, I do feel like I just should dig a little deeper, just for this.
I think it's actually really useful to say that abortion is worse than slavery because it really forces people to think. Because what's the worst human rights issue that everybody talks about? Slavery. And yes, of course, it was heinous, it was wrong, it was immoral, it was disgusting. We all know that. But once you put slavery and abortion in the same sentence, it really forces you to understand the true atrocities of abortion.
Okay, so a couple things here. You never want to find yourself setting up a point by saying, of course slavery was bad. But this happens way more times on this podcast than it ever should on any podcast, and it's fascinating to watch.
It's not to say that slavery is good or okay or just. Okay. It's obviously still bad and disgusting. But again, I'm not defending I can't even have to say this. Obviously, we're not defending slavery. But obviously, slavery is one of the worst things that human beings have ever done to each other. But the thing about slavery is that you still have a right to life.
So to the idea that making this comparison somehow forces people to understand the true horror of abortion, we have to ask, is that really what happens when you do this? I mean, we saw the comment section, right? Those tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of people, did they seem to be going through some epiphany about the ethics of abortion when she made the comparison? Are they beelining it to the Daily Wire subscription page thanks to her uniquely effective rhetoric? No. Of course not. They were doing the opposite, likely just shocked and appalled at the ignorance of the statement. And can you really blame them? When she earnestly makes this comparison, what she's doing is undermining and whitewashing the uniquely horrific atrocity that was American chattel slavery. She's implying that enslaved black people and aborted fetuses are the same thing, and that there's no difference in the morality of the forces which have created their situations. Never mind the fact that American slavery was a permanent and heritable institution based upon your race that was carried out for the economic gain of the white masters, and that abortion is an often necessary procedure to protect the health and well-being of the person getting one. No, these two things are the same because one life equals one life, and that's all that matters. Another probably worse thing is that in doing this, she is also implicating people who've had abortions as being morally equivalent or worse than slave owners. And that's just not great, you know? Hey, that 10-year-old rape victim that had to cross state lines to get an abortion a few weeks ago, thanks to laws that you happen to promote, she was actually doing a slavery. Worse, even. When I tell people that vaccine mandates are worse than the Holocaust, or that Trump having the election stolen from him is worse than a million 9/11s, it really helps them understand, you know? They say, wow, they must have been really actually bad then. Like, no, none of that is what's happening here.
One of the reasons why abortion is even more heinous than slavery is because the person ending your life is the one person that you rely on. I can't even say this without getting emotional.
Mm-hmm. As opposed to slavery, where the person enslaving you, it's nothing personal, you know? They're not your family, they're not your relatives. It's just some white guy. He doesn't have any, it's not his, it's his business, you know? Come on. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? This once again posits the intentions of the person getting the abortion as being to literally murder their own child, as opposed to like taking a pill to get rid of this like weird little axolotl guy. Because as we know, the vast majority of abortions take place in the first trimester. It's just very silly. And you know it's very silly, but I feel like I still have to just mention it.
Maybe Media Matters one day will start taking our clips out of context and call me a slavery apologist. Stop killing babies.
Nobody has to take you out of context to call you a slavery apologist. I can do it right now. Watch. You're a slavery apologist. You said multiple times that abortion is worse than slavery. And then you said you have empathy for people who have abortions. Doesn't that mean we ought to extend this empathy to the slave owners too? I mean, the acts they committed were, according to you, no worse than the pregnancy terminations. So what's up? Were they brainwashed by big slavery?
Well, this is why I say the abortion industry preys on vulnerable women. Like, my heart breaks just as much for most of those women. Yeah. Again, not the ones out there with the not a human yet written on their stomach. Yeah. But the women, there's so many women, millions of women who have been preyed on by the predatory abortion industry, which is propped up and funded by the federal government. And my heart breaks for these women because they don't know what an abortion is. They don't know what they're getting themselves into. And they are coerced many times and bullied into ending the life of their own child. Yeah. And that is traumatic, truly
terrible.
traumatic.
It's terrible.
Also, there's no evidence of this notion that people are being propagandized in mass to get abortions. The most commonly cited reasons for getting abortions are 74% of people saying that caring for a baby would interfere with work, education, or ability to care for dependents. Younger women reported being unprepared for the transition to motherhood, and older women cited their responsibility to dependents. So there is no Marxist plot to get everyone to get abortions, and there is no hoes being hoes agenda.
The fact that we have millions of babies murdered in the womb just because hoes want a hoe.
And implying otherwise just demonstrates ignorance on the reasons for why people get these and what this system does for people. Another argument that gets made here is that because the phrase life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness was written by the founding fathers in that order, this means that it was some kind of intentional chronological checklist of morality.
The right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Listen to that order. What does abortion take away? It takes away the right to life. And do you think that our founding fathers just threw those words together willy-nilly, nonchalantly, without ever thinking about them? You think the order of those words doesn't have any meaning? Those words are in that order for a very specific reason, because the right to life is the most important, the most crucial, and the primary right that we all have.
Couple of things here. First, when we're having discussions about the morality of slavery, I don't think the founding fathers are the people that we should be consulting, seeing as, you know, at the time they wrote those words, they owned slaves. So even if she's right about the intentions of the order of the words, why would that matter? For black people in America, all of those words were a lie. Secondly, you may see where this argument is leading to. If she's making the case that abortion strips all of these rights away from fetuses, and that this process is worse than what happened with slavery, then does she mean that slavery didn't do that? Well, her answer may shock and surprise you very much.
Your right to life, it can't be given to you or taken away from you by the government. That is a God-given right. And it comes before liberty and the pursuit of happiness. Obviously, because if you're not alive,
Can't have liberty.
You can't have liberty. You can't have a right to the pursuit of happiness. Now, again, I can't even believe I have to say this, but I have to say this for all the dum-dums. Obviously, slavery is one of the worst things that human beings have ever done. But the thing about slavery is that you still have a right to life. You are at least alive. Okay. You are alive. Now, do you have a right to liberty and the pursuit of happiness? Very likely not.
Right.
It does kind of depend on like the slave owner, like, you know what I mean? It depends on where you're enslaved, the era that you're enslaved in, etc.
Depends on the slave owner? What? What's up? What's up, man? Hey, slave owners killed slaves all the time. That's a thing that happened, and they mostly got away with it. What are you saying? What are you saying? Ever. This is again what makes it hilarious, the notion that people are going to take this podcast out of context to make them look like slavery apologists. The point that is repeatedly being made is self-evidently slavery apologia, just over and over saying that slaves didn't have it that bad. Not like little Eggo waffle here, the thing that can't see, hear, feel, think, or breathe. Pain. I'm in pain. All right, y'all. So that was just a quick little peek at some insane internet conservatism. We always make sure to have a good, fun, wholesome time on this channel. That's why we do it, and we love it. The only thing that could make this worse if this show somehow got picked up or sponsored by like Daily Wire or PragerU, that would be pretty wild. And to be perfectly honest, that probably will happen. It doesn't matter how incompetent or extremist your propagandists are, if they can keep pushing a conservative worldview with a Shure SM7B and a smile, they will fit perfectly snug into the right-wing media machine. And we love that for us, for this country and the world. The same people that shit their pants and cry 1984 when asked to wear a face covering in CVS are the people that love when the state enforces every pregnancy to be carried to term, even if it requires state violence. It makes sense. If you really think about it hard, it makes sense. Okay, thanks again for patrons and all the support. Thank you guys so much. You should be scrolling by on the screen now. Join my Patreon if you want to be in the end credits of the videos. We love to see it. Also, if you voted in this poll, thank you for participating, and I'm going to be making this video, and I'm really excited for it. I didn't do a 100K special. I didn't do a 200K sub special, so it's going to be a 250K double special, and I'm excited. It's going to be, I think, an interesting video. We'll be talking about masculinity and body image and sexuality and a whole load of things. It's going to get personal, it's going to get intimate, and it's going to get bald. Okay, bye everybody. Love you. Bye.